Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Preetham Dutta from ArcLight, and welcome to ArcLight's presentation of our Crescent reporting tool, specifically designed for payroll. We are excited to have you here with us. We're excited to talk to you about the tool. We've got some use cases we want to show you. We want to talk a little bit about the technology that powers it. But more importantly, we want to show you how this tool can help you as payroll administrators in your day-to-day life running Oracle's cloud payroll. We think it's a fantastic tool. We think it's a great efficiency saver. We think it's a great way for payroll administrators to get their job done faster, more accurately, and better than they do today. So a little bit of housekeeping before we dive into this and go through this. We're recording this webinar, so if there's somebody who was unable to make it right now and you want to show them this later, more than happy to send you the link to this, have you replay it. It's all the details and all the materials will be there for you. We're going to go through some high-level use cases of the tool so that we can walk you through how it was built, why it was built that way, what the benefits are, and how you might be able to use it. But obviously, you might have specific use cases that matter to you in the way you run your business. We're more than happy to dive into that. We can schedule follow-ups. We can schedule secondary meetings with you to talk through that and make sure that you're fully aware of how and where this tool can assist you in your day-to-day processing of payroll. Lastly, this is a presentation, so we want to make sure we're going through a certain amount of use cases and scenarios so you can see the tool in action, but we also want to hear from you. So we want to make sure that you get to have your questions answered. So we will be monitoring the chat. There's a couple of us that will monitor the chat to make sure that as we're going through this process and going through the tool itself, we can answer your questions. We also have a dedicated time for Q&A at the end of this presentation to make sure that should there be any other questions that weren't answered during the presentation, we can make sure we're answering them now. So that being said, I'd like to go into introductions and introduce you to the team that is going to be presenting to you today. We've got a straightforward agenda. So on the phone with us, we're really happy to have Mike Machinga from RPM International. He's the Senior Director of HRIS there. Mike's got a long history with Oracle legacy tools, with Oracle legacy payroll tools, and now obviously with Oracle's cloud and cloud payroll as well. And so we're delighted to have Mike on to give his perspective, give his views on the evolution of payroll reporting, the needs that are out there. And I think everybody here will find it very interesting and very informative, the way Mike leverages the tool, but also the experience and the history he brings from an Oracle perspective from it and using it. Next, we have Patrick Lazary, who's the VP of Technology Development at ArcLight Consulting, and he runs our Crescent Payroll division. So he's obviously an architect behind this, 20 plus years of payroll reporting knowledge to his credit, and he's going to bring that experience to you here. It's built into the tool, but also to help answer questions and guide you through a little bit of where the tool originated from and how it's architected from a cloud perspective. Next is Mike Joseph, who's our developer extraordinaire. He works in our Crescent reporting tool division. He's a payroll expert, comes to us from functional consulting. He's going to actually guide us through and walk us through a demo of the functionality, show you the tool in action, what the benefits are, why it works a certain way, and how you can leverage it. So Mike's going to spend a lot of the time in the application showing it to you. And then last but not least, Madeline Callis, who runs marketing and alliances for ArcLight. We wouldn't be here if Madeline wasn't able to put these presentations together and organize it the way she does. Madeline and I will be on the chat to make sure that we're assisting you with any questions you have, but also making sure that we're answering the questions you might bring up later on and any follow-ups that might be there as well. So that being said, let's go ahead and meet Crescent, and let's talk a little bit about what it is, how it works, and why it's there. So, the first question we always get asked is sort of what is Crescent and why did ArcLight create it? And well, the answer is kind of simple. We looked at the way our customers run reports in the Oracle space. We looked at their business process flows. We looked at some of the areas where they said, I wish it could be a little faster. I wish I could do this. I wish I could get this or do these other features. And we tried to solve those needs. And so as we go through this presentation, what you're going to see is the first thing that Crescent is it's fast. It's there to make sure that payroll administrators can answer the questions that are either holding up their payroll processing or making them go back and do things like correcting a payroll process fast. We want to get them information they need faster than they can right now and make sure it's obviously accurate, but make sure that it's available to them regardless of where they are. So wherever they are in the payroll administration hierarchy, whether they're a payroll analyst, whether they're a reporting analyst, whether they're the payroll administrator, we want to make sure that they're getting that data as fast as possible. Second thing, we want the tool to be secure. This is payroll data. Payroll data has to be secure. We don't want that data getting out anywhere. Patrick and Mike will talk a little bit about the security that's baked into it, how we've designed it, why it's done that way, but it's secure. It's built into the application to ensure that we're abiding by your security rules and we're making sure that you're comfortable that your data is secure within the application and that you're able to get as much of that data as your role allows you to or your access allows you to. Second thing, or third thing, excuse me, that you'll find is that the tool is flexible. You'll see that this tool is based on an Excel backend. And so as you're going through your reporting, we're putting you in the tool that everyone feels most comfortable with as you're slicing and dicing your data, as you're running alternate reports, as you're adding new filters. We want to make sure that you are fully comfortable in the tool set, the range of capabilities within that tool set, but also you're able to leverage skills that you have today. And so you don't necessarily need to learn a brand new skill set to use this. It's baked into the Excel backend. And therefore for you, it becomes very much plug and play. You're going to pick it up and feel comfortable within it. Obviously, we deliver dashboards out of the box, but most payroll admins I know like to create their own reports. And so what we wanted to do is give you a tool that took no learning, very easy to ramp up, very straightforward for you to create your own templates, very straightforward for you to get your team up and running in that tool as well. Next, it's comprehensive. When we think about payroll tools, and we think about this from a real-time sort of a here's the data today aspect, but also from a historical standpoint, we want to make sure that you have all the information you need at the point you need it so that you can make the best decision possible as fast as possible. And that really for us becomes a comprehensive tool set. If you have to run multiple reports or you have to reconcile multiple reports or you have to wait for a report to run and then run another one to see whether it matches, that takes you out of the payroll administrator role. It takes you out of the business process flow and it slows you down. And for larger and larger organizations, the data becomes more and more complex. So what we wanted to do is make sure that you had the information you need as early as possible, as fast as possible, so that you can make the best decision possible. So that's a little bit about Crescent before we dive into this. I think one of the best things we can do is have Mike jump in here and talk a little bit about RPM. And Mike, maybe I'll start by just asking you to give the audience just an overview of RPM and the brands that are under the RPM umbrella. I'm sure, I know I have, but I'm sure they've used multiple RPM brands and didn't realize they were under your umbrella. So with that, Mike, might turn it over to you a little.
Okay, great. Thank you. Yeah, it's funny. We get that a lot, especially with the consumer group. But anyway, RPM is about a $5.5 billion multinational. We're organized into 4 different operating groups. We have a construction products group, which has a numerous companies that really manage and support the entire building envelope. So we've got companies that will manufacture sealants that are designed for the industrial construction industry, as well as roofing rehabs, mostly focused on not necessarily redesign, but tear offs and maintenance items. We also have a performance coatings group that, again, numerous companies there, but to highlight them, they specialize in world-class floor coating systems, offshore sealants, and paints. We have a consumer group, which I think, Preetham, you kind of referenced. Most people recognize the consumer lines. We own companies like DAP, which is residential and commercial sealants and caulks, but they do so much more. And Rust-Oleum. Rust-Oleum is one of our flagships, and most everybody's heard of Rust-Oleum with regards to spray paints and otherwise. And then we have also a specialty products group that manufactures products from powder coatings all the way down to specialty colorants, day glow products, marine grade sealants, and undercoat, bottom paint for the marine industry. So there's a vast array of different businesses that we support from a payroll perspective, from a corporate headquarters perspective. A large group of folks, and pretty much a large variation of types of businesses that we support.
So, Mike, let me ask a question there. And I think you were hinting at it, though. Can you talk a little bit about how the differences in all these divisions and all these brands, and obviously I'm assuming this, the way they run payroll as well, causes complexity for you? Maybe a little detail on that to give the folks just understanding how complex RPM is on a week over week basis.
Yeah. So the complexity, begins with our culture. For years and years, and really it continues today. RPM is a holding company, but our goal and our focus is to maintain an entrepreneurial spirit for our companies, which extrapolates to decentralization more often than not. So, processes that exist, and from a payroll perspective, most of those processes are streamlined, but everybody likes to do things a little bit differently. We have companies that do things, as I said, mostly manufacturing, but we have construction outfits within our construction products group, and so that creates complexity in terms of the requirements for certified payroll, requirements, and prevailing wages, making sure that we're paying people at the right rates on government jobs, government contracts. So being able to navigate those waters is quite challenging. And then obviously to report on, those components are tough.
And Mike, is it the number of FEINs you have, or the data or the access that really causes that complexity? Is this a training thing of folks just trying to learn how to get to the system and use all the features?
Yeah, I think, if we do, it's part of our complexity is just size, right? And the number of legal entities that we have. We're processing actively today in the United States more than 40 legal entities. That translates into probably, I'm guessing, about 25, 26 different payrolls that are being processed by, as I said, decentralized departments. So, it's complex in that regard. When we talk about training, I don't know that training is terrible. You can only carve up Oracle payroll in so many different ways, but I think a lot of the complexity for us comes in the shape of taxes, different jurisdictions. We operate, as I said, with 40 different legal entities, which means there are that many jurisdictions that we pay, whether they're federal, state, local jurisdictions. So having to kind of carve up that landscape so that we can handle our taxing and our reporting on taxes and interface with ADP. We use ADP as a third-party provider to file taxes, but we still have to obviously provide data, balance that data, and then release it for payment. So it's challenging in that regard.
So, Mike, how has Crescent helped? And I think it might be worth just a quick discussion on your history within the Oracle payroll world, because you're a longtime user of Oracle payroll and even legacy payroll. And so you bring a certain set of experience to the table, but also a certain history of how things used to be and how things are now in the cloud. And I think that would definitely help the people on the phone kind of get a better understanding of just how you've made the transition.
Sure. I think if anybody, obviously our audience is Oracle payroll related, I think, so if you've spent any time in using Oracle payroll, it's not necessarily a knock on Oracle, but it's reporting in the system. Payroll reporting has not always been the most robust out of the box. And I think, most people who've used it would agree on that. And so we began using EBS, the eBusiness Suite, in 2012. And at that point decided that we needed to supplement our reporting needs and purchased a product that was very similar to Crescent. It was called KBX, and it was just a dynamite tool. It in many ways was a precursor to what we are going to see today. But the beauty of it is are the kind of the facets of the tool that you've already underlined. Being a tool that we can download the information into Excel, something that this a payroll administrator doesn't need special training on. Some folks are a little bit slower to take to pivot tables than other, but it's ground that you can make up. But the beauty of it is the flexibility of the tool, and that's what we always really loved. In EBS and using KBX, there really wasn't anything that you couldn't solve. You could and do quickly, with regards to reporting, whether you're balancing a payroll, whether you're trying to identify taxes that are new. I don't know how many people are out there dealing with local income taxes and courtesy filings, but we do that on a regular basis. And so those questions, kind of percolate when you're starting new people, and all of a sudden you've got a mystery, tax that you're trying to file and set up. So anyway, that was one of the things that from a historical perspective, I've really enjoyed, using and getting into this and just, taking advantage of the flexibility of the tool. Trying to see.
So Mike, I appreciate the information. I appreciate the history. I know you'll obviously be on to help assist with questions that come up, both for yourself, but also maybe on the tool. I think it's maybe the right time for us to show folks what this product can do and how it can work. And so Patrick and Mike, I think we can move into a little bit of the product demo. And Patrick, I'll hand it over to you.
Thanks, Preetham, and welcome everyone. I'll start with just a really quick overview of what life today is for payroll reporting, and then we'll jump right into the Crescent product. So as some of you are familiar with or not, you'd start your whole process by running the payroll. And in this example, you could, after your payroll process is done, you submit a payroll activity report. That's completed, and then in general, people download that into Excel. And then they take that and they filter and aggregate it. So, and we'll show you a slide here with, this is a sample output that you get from Oracle, which is fine. You get your basic information, people, tax units, stuff like that, the balance names and whatnot. But where we're going with Crescent is we can take it further than that. We don't want to, maybe I need to, filter and aggregate by different processes. So, some of the key components of Crescent that we're talking about is it's data set oriented. So when you're looking at this, it's not a number of reports. A data set equates to many different reports. This allows users to grab whatever field that they want, aggregate, and basically giving you countless reports. And then the other note is Crescent is also, you'll see from this front end, it's an Excel base that points to a data mart. The reason we did Excel, like Mike Machinga was just talking about, is everybody knows how to use that, but that is not the only reporting tool. If you want to use a different front end, you can. You can use MicroStrategy or Power BI, Oracle Analytics, Tableau, anything to point at that data set. But what I wanted to emphasize is in this Excel, we're not using, I'll say, your father's Excel. This is Excel with the Power Query and Power Pivot features underneath it. What that means is it's using an underlying columnar database, and it removes a lot of those limitations that you might encounter now in Excel if you're not using these features, which is like row limits and performance stuff like that. So a lot of tech speak for it's using more advanced technology and it's faster. So at this time, I think you guys are probably done listening to people talk. Let's show the products. I'm going to turn this over to Mike Joseph, and he'll dig right into Crescent and show you different data sets that we have. So go ahead, Mike.
Thank you, Patrick. We have talked enough about it. Now it's showtime. So when you open up Crescent, you'll be greeted with the dashboard. And with this dashboard, this is your payroll at a glance. Here, you notice the metrics over at the top. And you can see an employee count and payment counts based on the payroll that was just ran. From here, we also provide a comparative analysis from the last period to the current period. So as an example, if I select 2 dates here, I can see that this chart is dynamically changing as I make my elections. If I want to hold on a specific payroll, let's say the weekly payroll, I can see that detail here. And as I can tell, the tax deductions were significantly higher than the previous period, probably due to the supplemental earnings that were generated. Now, also included in this workbook is all these different data sets that Patrick was referring to. So first, let's take a look at the balance category. And I'm excited to kind of show you some of the cool features that you can do. Now, as you can see, my previous selections that were made in the dashboard have flown over to this tab, thus eliminating the need to re-elect them. All right. And here we see these same metrics that we just previously saw. All right. So if I click on here, notice I have access to all these different tables, all in this one report. So from here, if I want to see the same earnings amount by departments, I can simply expand on assignments, click departments, and the data will be sliced and diced in that particular regard. To take a little step further, if I go over to the people table, I can even add in their full name. One very handy trick that I like to always tell my customers is within this, you have the ability via pivot table to quickly toggle between this detail and the summarized view. Simply by collapsing these items, you can get back to that summarized view. And if I expand this to do every one of these fields, you'll notice that this is a very clean summary view of all the different balances and the balance categories, and I can expand on any one of these if I want to drill down a little further. The next data set I want to show you is the tax details. And for those who are using Oracle Payroll, you know that this type of information, the FICAs, the states, the locals, each of these requires separate report to aggregate. With Crescent, we give you all that with just one click. So once you ran this, you will have access to all these different data sets that you can choose to filter, aggregate, and slice and dice however you want to. Let's say, for example, I want to focus in on the state and local taxes. Over at the tax type, I can filter for city, county, and let's do SIT. So from here, I see all the different tax components, the gross, the subject withholdable, and if I scroll over to the right, I have all my withhelds. Let's say I want to take a look at the specific jurisdictions that make these up. Simply click on the table. I'll drag state from the filters over to a row. And by extension, I can keep going to get the county and city information. So I can see for my cities, I have the counties, the city, and I have each of those earnings breakdown as such. The next thing I want to show you, it's the payments. And just to quickly.
Hey, Mike. Mike, I'm sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to drop a couple of comments in on the tax details.
Sure.
I was just alluding to it a little bit earlier. One of the things that, I don't know if everybody has this, but we have a significant issue with identifying taxes that fall out from our transactions, our periodic transactions. So when we have a new employee start, for instance, and it tax is withheld automatically in Oracle like it's supposed to, we transmit that data to ADP and that tax falls out. And so my payroll administrators always really struggle with trying to find out, gosh, where did that, what is that tax? Who does that tax belong to? Is it a legitimate tax? And should we set that jurisdiction up, so that ADP can, then thereby file it? Or is it erroneous? And do we need to revise or refund the tax? And so, just as a call out here, the tax details tab is fabulous for finding that, that exact detail by employee, because again, it's so flexible. I can focus on, let's say, the particular city or county that fell out. I can drive, the employee name, as you indicated, into the pivot table to identify the person. And so it makes it so simple for me to identify those taxes, because in ADP, I don't know if there's anybody else that utilizes ADP, but ADP will only give you a subset of information. It's almost a puzzle that you have to put together. I can do this for a large group of people inside of 10 minutes. It's fabulous. And it's really been a game changer for our company. So anyway, I just wanted to call that out. And if you'll permit me, I'll just, kind of jump in here periodically.
Please do. That was
with
perfect.
A little color commentary. Thanks, Mike.
Sure. So the next
Mike,
data set.
And I'd like just another point. You talked about having the bonus supplemental run before too. One of the other items that we can aggregate on is the payroll flow. So if you have 2 bonus or multiple runs for a given process date, check date, we can also aggregate on the flow name, the creation date, all that kind of stuff. You could find out, maybe who kicked that off, whatever they know about it.
Right. Exactly.
All right.
And it's also important to note too that you can run this at, for a date range. So you don't necessarily have to lock in on a payroll. You can run this by quarter. If, for instance, you're working on, specific tax filings for a quarter, or going back in history and, and trying to dial in, okay, where, who is this, tax that we're reporting on? Who is it attached to? Because sometimes you'll get special, report requests from different jurisdictions and so on and so forth. So very, very flexible and portable and powerful tool that has saved me hours and hours and hours. So I appreciate it. Okay, now I'm going to stop.
Thank you. So the next data set I want to cover is the payment. So also included within this payroll balance workbook are the payment details. And as you can see here, we have whether something is a check, EFT, and the payment status. Very quickly, I want to also add that not only do we give you the payment information, but we also give you access to take a look at the payment method configuration. So whether it's the bank name, the allocation percent, so you have the ability to tie in these payments to their specific personal payment method setup. And the one cool feature about this report is for those of you who are still running checks in Oracle Payroll, we have this very cool feature that lets you track the check numbers between things that are voided and got reissued. So as an example, if I were to filter and search for an employee here under this person number, I see that they have one payment that was voided and then the other rest were paid. If I go into my pivot table field list, I can bring in the check numbers, and I can also bring in this column called replace reference number. So from here, I can see that relationship. This was the original check that was issued. It got voided. And now this is the new check that replaces it. And I can see that check number being referenced within this new check. Right. And last but certainly not least, employee balance details. This by far is my favorite tab. If you know kind of operational Oracle, you know that the ability to get everyone's balance all on one screen can be a very challenging task. And this tab gives you over 250 balances all on the same page.
And can I interject a little bit that relates to a question we had in the chat is for liens and whatnot. So it's every balance, so garnishments, earnings, deductions, even these intermediate shadow balances like deferred comp 401k eligible earnings, which is what's used to do your in the calculation for your deferred comp. So it is every single balance. There's no balances missing out of this list. Go ahead.
Thank you. All right. So as an example, let me filter for one specific employee, and let's take a look at the balances that they have. And let's say I also want to hone in on a specific process date. So I'll come here. I can either select it using the list, or I can simply type it. All right. And I can see all the different balances that were processed for this employee. Now, as I'm scrolling through here, I realize that the deferred comp eligible earnings is significantly lower than what this person was paid out in their gross wages. That makes you wonder, what's happening here? Is there an issue? How can I figure out? So let's investigate a little further. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add a field called flow name. Patrick mentioned it earlier. And I'm also going to filter all the 401k balances. So I'll simply type in 401k here. Now I only see the 401k balances. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add on top of that just one of the gross wage balances. So I'll come here. And using this add to current selection, I can add this on top of the filter that I already have. And what I'm seeing is from this particular process date, there were two processes that were run, one for the regular and another one for the bonuses. And the bonus amounts are not feeding into the 401k eligible balances. From here, I can take this flow name, I can roll it back and make the necessary corrections that I need to in order to resolve the issue. The last set of data sets that we have on this workbook that I want to mention very quickly, but we're not going to go into them too much, are the W-2 registers. Now, the nice thing about the W-2 registers in this case is this will not require you to run that year in archive. So this is information that every pay period, every time you get new information processed, you'll be able to access the W-2 box totals for your quarterly reconciliation, monthly reconciliation, all with one click. So I'll quickly show them here. We have box 12 and 14 separately. And we also have the miscellaneous for the different states.
So Mike, this could be a great check if you add a new element and then you go out there and find out that that new element's not feeding one of your W-2 box 12 balances or whatnot, so that you don't find out about that in late December when you're sending your stuff over to ADP or whatever you do for your year end, correct?
Exactly.
You're doing this quarter by quarter or pay period by pay period.
Yeah, just real quick, Mike, to add to that, as I said earlier, we use ADP for our tax filing. And so the process is such that we send our quarterly files to them. They run it through their process and then give us back by company a list of their box totals. And so this report to me is fabulous because I'm able to quickly and easily get the box totals by company and then modify the format if I need to, or filter on the data and slice it and dice it quickly. If I identify a problem where I'm having balancing issues. So it's, it's something, a template that you can save off and quickly, I guess refresh and just bounce the totals against what ADP is reporting. It's really was very helpful to me in my year-end process. One of the things, I don't know, well, let me know when you're done with this slide, Mike, and we can go back because I wanted to reference a couple other things on the tabs that you were too quick for me moving on.
Please feel free.
So one of the things that I'd call out as just a recent example of something that I was able to do quickly and easily in Crescent rather, that would have taken me infinitely more time using the out of the box reporting, was using the balance category tab. One of the things that we were trying to get a handle on, from a corporate perspective, is the FFCRA credits that I would expect most people were, probably fighting to report on and to gather information on, so that we could, apply for those credits with the federal government. And so we had created specific earnings that were related to, the CV-19 earnings and the emergency leave that we used specifically for those purposes. So I was really pretty easily able to create a report by employee by period that identified those specific earnings. I actually also put in detail related to their employer and employee paid medical deductions also. So I won't say that, at the end of the process, it was a perfect, extract to be able to calculate those credits with, because there are other variables that enter into play for those credits. But it was an exceptional way for us to identify those who we paid emergency leave or, sick pay or, COVID, earnings to, and to detail those people and to, pull the information by pay period so that we could identify it and get us that much further along in processing our credits to the Fed. So, like I say, it's just a simple example that's really not simple at all to get to, otherwise.
Thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
Any other comments on the balances workbook before we move into costing? All right. So last but certainly not least, we also, so as part of the Crescent product, you will get not just one workbook, but a whole suite. So currently we're rolling out the costing analysis, the balances, and soon an element register as well. So within the costing, you have access to get all different accounts, the tax reporting units along with it, and you can slice and dice this however way you want. In this particular view, I have the months across the top, and I have the costed value here being calculated. Something that you may or may not have gone through is, let's say you get a request from finance and they indicate a specific account that has an issue. Maybe the number on this account is significantly higher than what is expected previously. And they want a breakdown of everyone that's makes up this account. Now, they don't give you a particular process date, they don't give you a particular pay period, they just say, here's the account, I think this number is wrong. With Crescent, you can easily filter for this account. So I'll do that here. Filter the specific cost center that you want to take a look at. And using the underlying architecture that we've seen already, we can easily add in person number, and we can get that breakdown here. If needed, we can add in the element that made up those amounts. So I can click here, and I can get that element. So really handy tool to essentially get that costing report, get it faster, and also be able to dissect it in a way that you would have to run this report for the entire year just to be able to kind of get a sense of where that discrepancy lies, right? And also included over here in this cost details, it's a very similar view. However, this emphasizes more on the elements for the accounts. All right, Patrick, that concludes the two workbooks.
Back to the next. Great. So I want to just cover a few key points of Crescent. Crescent is it's a tool that it's sold on a subscription basis, and part of that subscription fee is ArcLight does the monitoring and maintenance for any of the reports. So if there's any kind of change on the Oracle side, legislation or Vertex patches that need something to be done, we're on the hook for that. It includes access to connectivity to your production and one test environment. So when you get quarterly patches, it's great to come out and run these processes, or actually run the process, record your results. Oracle applies their patch, you rerun that same payroll, and then you can test everything in your system and make sure that all your fast formulas, all your payroll is running the same as it was before the patch. And it's data security. We mimic the Oracle application security. So if I'm a payroll manager and I have a role that gives me access to say all payrolls, and another payroll admin that maybe just takes care of your exec payroll, stuff like that. So whatever payrolls, locations, apartments, whatever you can see in the application is the data set that you'll see in Crescent. And we do this in I think, a pretty slick way. It's all implicit and it's a row level security. So even if I hack into the database, if I don't have the roles to see those, any given table, you can't see that data. So it's using row level security and implicit criteria that goes into query. So even if somebody gets in there, you don't have to join to a secure view or anything like that. So it is inherent within the database. We also have column level security. So if as an organization, you want to not see social security numbers, or if you want to mask the first 5 digits, stuff like that, that's all built in. That's stuff that you have direct control over. Pretty simple. You can say who gets it and who doesn't. And also on the lines of security it's always encrypted. It's encrypted online. It's encrypted at rest. Any log files, everything as far as the data goes is encrypted. And then we can go, if you're interested in the product and stuff, we can go into a deeper dive into the full technology. So at this point, I think I'm going to open up to see if anybody else has any other questions.
Reminder that if you do have questions, if you could please put them into the chat.
Hey, while we're waiting on questions to pop in, there were a couple things that I was thinking about that are worth noting and wanted to, as we're getting, kind of close to the end of the presentation. One of the things that I think is exceptional for us to use is going back to Excel. These templates are Excel sheets. And so if you are a person who runs, repeatable reporting or monthly reports, you can save the templates. I know there was a lot of, we keep talking about flexibility, but when you lock in a template and you have it set the way that you like it, you save that template off, and then instead of starting over next month, you just open that template up, refresh the data, and then your report is formatted in the way that you left it. And so that's exceptionally powerful, and it's a good time saver. And if you're like me and you support a lot of different payroll processors that might not be super adept at manipulating pivot tables, it's also very helpful. You can create the template, pass that template to your administrator, and then they can run it using their database security. So that's pretty exceptional. Do we have any questions yet? I can go on.
I can also add to that. So we chose Excel to be the entry point for this data, but it doesn't have to be Excel. I think I mentioned it earlier, but MicroStrategy could point to this. Excel is basically using Microsoft's Power BI technology underneath it, is how we're getting this volume of data and speed. Tableau, Oracle Analytics, any of those. So it doesn't have to be that. If you needed to create a dashboard off of some of your benefits earnings and stuff like that and post that, you could use one of those tools to do a dashboard too. If you didn't want to have a group of people with Excel access, you could do it with BI and have them access it from there. We got another question. Can you build, the question is, can you build security to grant access to some accounting user to share the costing reports? Yes, the answer is yes, you can. And so, and on that line of other reports is, if you needed picture perfect type reports of a 940, 941, maybe you're doing filing yourself and don't want to go to ADP route. That's another method that you could use. But we do find that most users, to your point, Mr. Machinga, is that the Excel flexibility, you just can't beat it. And then there's another question: is there a workflow for distribution via email or secure drives? No, there isn't. Not from the tool itself. You can download these and share the workbooks. To refresh it though, it does go through re-authentication. So there's a lot of PII that we wouldn't want to send via email. And this also kind of reminds me of another point is, I know in a challenge is sometimes you run a payroll activity report, one person does, right? The payroll manager. And I've seen a lot of organizations then take that output and put it on a share because other people can't get to that report. They'd have to rerun the payroll activity report to see those results. And they don't want to wait that, 30 minutes, hour, whatever the size of your organization is in the response. With Crescent, I don't really see the need for that. Is anybody can just refresh it and look at the data set that they need to. So you don't have to share data and leave flat files on shared drives and stuff like that. I don't know, Mike, if if you guys had any experience with that beforehand, but it's commonly what I see.
I guess I'm not seeing any other questions, but one of the things that I wanted to, now that we're getting close to the end, wanted to make sure that I conveyed, as a customer, when I was asked to do this, I don't do it often, these types of presentations, which is probably evident, in in my delivery. But when I was asked, I thought, this is kind of a no-brainer for me because, I've worked closely with this group of people for quite a while. We've engaged ArcLight in other endeavors. They have another product called ArcLight Care, which we've engaged them with, that is completely unrelated to this. But it was one of the first contact points to where we started a relationship with ArcLight, and and built that into and we're really excited to work with Crescent and to look at this tool because it was just being developed at the time, a long time back when we first started. And the strength, or one of the strengths I should say, of ArcLight is their people. From a as I said, from a customer's perspective, these are people you want to work with. These are problem solvers, and this group, specifically Crescent, the Crescent support group, there is absolutely no exception. Mike Joseph and I have worked for many hours on numerous little mini projects, if you would. And that's the beauty of this to me, as being, I guess, in leadership with our company. I want people that solve problems. I want to be able to take my issues to them and sort it out. And so the tool, as we've said in numerous times, it's so very flexible. And so, when I reach the end of my rope, trying to solution a, it's whatever problem or report request or one, kind of goofy thing we as customers try to stand on our heads for. I know and have reached out to the Crescent support team, and they've come up with some wild and crazy, solutions to some of the goofiest payroll, issues where we've painted ourselves into corners with balance adjustments. I could go on for quite a long time, speaking up, the work that Mike Joseph has done with this team for us personally. But that's the beauty of it to me, and makes the product a no-brainer. And the reason why I even agreed to be part of this presentation was because these people are great to work with, and they solve problems for us, and it makes the spend every bit worth it, from an RPM perspective. So anyway, I just wanted to make sure that was said.
Thank you, Mike. We really appreciate that. And we didn't ask him to say that, by the way. I just want to make that clear. So we appreciate that.
No, it's completely unsolicited. And I told Mike Joseph he's one of my favorite people in the world because he's awesome. And he's just awesome to work with. Not to say that others aren't, but, like I say, he and I have spent a lot of time together. And again, I don't do a lot of these, webinars, but, this one was easy to say yes to, because it's that good.
We appreciate that. We really do. Everyone at ArcLight, thank you for your participation today, and for all of your kind words. And with that, we are almost at the top of the hour. So we are going to move on to next steps. If any of you are interested in seeing a more in-depth demo, and you are currently an ArcLight Care customer, please log a ticket with ArcLight Care and reference the Crescent payroll reporting tool. If you're interested to find out what ArcLight Care is, you should reach out to us as well. I know Mike mentioned that as well. And then for those of you who are not ArcLight Care customers, please reach out to Sean Saratani. He is the VP of Sales and Marketing for ArcLight, and he would be more than happy to have a conversation with you or point you in the right direction of who you need to talk to about next steps. I will also mention that I see a lot of Oracle faces out here. So if you have any customers that are currently, unhappy or having issues with their payroll reporting, and you want to talk to us about that, this will definitely help them. So reach out to your counterparts here at ArcLight from the sales department, or reach out to me directly, and I'd be happy to help you as well. With that, before we close it out, are there any last minute questions? All right, I don't see anything coming through. So good afternoon, everybody. Thank you again for joining, and hopefully we will be talking to you soon. And Mike, thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You.